Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Autism in Action podcast. And today we've got a very special guest. We've got Mr. Rubio, the producer of the film Float with Disney Pixar. Thank you so much
Hi.
for taking the time to be here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Tasha. Thanks for having me.
I cannot wait to hear more about this film Float and all about your personal journey in autism.
Oh, okay. Well, I think if people have seen the short and seen the extras, they know that I'm a father of a boy that's on the autism spectrum. My son is Alex. He's 12 years old now, and when he was first diagnosed, I had a really bad time with it. I actually if I'm being honest, I went through a depression at first, and my wife was like, you're a storyteller, so it'd be nice if you take all why don't you just take all this energy and do something good instead of just wallowing in the dark there. So
Yes.
and so so like 8 years ago, I or 9 years ago, I started on a comic book that I wanted to, and it was called Alex. And 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 then, but I wasn't quite ready to tell that story, and I put it aside. And 3 years ago, I decided to make the short Float, and because I was looking at my son and he was growing up, and I was like, I gotta tell the story. I think it's time. I think I'm ready, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity here at Pixar, and to see it go out in the world and see it affect different families and them relating to it, and bringing conversations to their families and helping them bring up the conversation to their families. It's so I feel so happy and grateful that's happening.
And I think that for a lot of us, parents, we go
Yeah.
through such an emotional roller coaster that you really depicted well in the Float film,
Thank you.
from beginning to end. And it was just perfect how you how you orchestrated that.
Oh,
Um, every time I watch it, I still get a lump in my throat, and I think I've watched it 100 times.
oh,
So
thank you.
yes,
Thank you.
but in a good way. And I think it offered a very intense release of an emotion, a lot of the emotions that we as parents have a hard time putting into words.
Right.
So um, that's just amazing. And with your son, you said he's
Mhm.
how old now?
He's 12 now.
He's 12 now. So
Yeah.
you have already, gone through a plethora of events and stuff with him um, on
Yes.
that journey yourself.
Yeah. I mean, like I've told people before, like had I done this short, possibly just even 6 years ago, probably would have been angrier the way the short came out. I find myself, I'm on the other side now
Hmm.
of accepting my son for who he is, and I feel, but I'm still on my journey, and I'm still. I mean, he's 12. He's not 13, so I'm sure I'm gonna go through some other stuff, as you probably know.
Oh yeah, with mine being 18 and 20 now,
Yes.
I still find myself going through the grieving process, and
Mhm.
the depression and the anger, all of that's part of that. And as a parent of a special needs, in that arena, there is a lot of grief that we don't talk about,
Right.
and it's important. It's important to talk about the depression and the anger and the things that really sit in the background as
I
well as the
totally agree.
treatments and stuff.
Yeah, because like you have to take care of yourself,
You do.
and that's one of the reasons of the short. I mean, some people have asked uh, why is the father did why didn't he affect the whole why is it affect the whole park, and now the whole park loves him. I was like, because that's not realistic.
No, it's not.
and and at the end, it's really about the father and son, and
Hmm.
it's really about the father accepting his son for who he is. And once the father does that, then they're going to be okay.
Right.
It, they'll face it. They'll face the world together. They'll be fine.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, you're not going to change the whole world. You're not going to change the whole park in 5 minutes.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
not gonna
well,
happen.
when in real life, when we're carrying them out of the grocery store from having a fit like a sack of taters, you know,
Right.
or throwing
Right.
everything in the aisle, you
Right.
know, it
Right.
definitely doesn't look that peaceful. So,
No, 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 it doesn't.
so yes, and even as our children age and they start
Hmm.
to transition into adulthood,
Hmm.
you know, the normal things that all the other kids are doing, that also becomes a hard thing, because they're dating or driving or
Oh,
going to
right,
prom or football games,
right,
and stuff like that. And then even afterwards, some people get to advance into to work in college and a career, and some don't.
right,
So that
right,
cycle still continues for us as parents, and that self-care piece and acknowledging
right,
those emotions is very, very important.
right. Because also, like I, I saw that the short was kind of like it was like a steps of of grieving.
Mhm.
Like it's the steps because you have to go through the grief, you have to go through the anger,
Mhm.
you have to go through. I forgot what all the steps are, but there definitely is the pleading. Why me? Why am I here?
Yep. The bargaining, the
The bargaining,
denial.
the
Yes.
denial,
Yes.
yes, and then to finally acceptance, and all of that is in float.
Mhm.
There is the father, like, what is this? To like, why can't you just be normal?
Right.
It's like
That's the
it's
lump in
all
my
there.
throat.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'm glad that I mean, I've gotten so many people that are saying, thank you for saying that, because that's what we say in our head, and it's taboo to do that. But
Mhm.
that for you to say it and bring it out there to the public, it helps with the conversation now. And I'm grateful that the conversation has started and helped people. So
Well, I am just so grateful to have you join us in this conversation about this conversation. And I plan, we're going to start a autism parent support group here the first week of February. And so that's actually how we plan to start it out, is to have everybody watch Float.
oh,
And
sweet.
yes, so you
That's
will
great.
be a much big part of that, even though you're not going to be
Oh,
here. So
I'm there in spirit. So
yes,
thank you
absolutely.
so much.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Rubio, for taking the time to be here today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we close?
Hmm. Just that you guys, we're not alone. And then I remember when I first started here at Pixar and I found out my son was on the autism spectrum. I thought I was alone. I really did. And I was wandering around the studio just in a daze. And I found out that there are actually parents here at Pixar. We have a group called the Quirky Kids. We have our own support group. And so I found them and I felt like I wasn't alone. And I want to float to feel that way. Like I want everyone to know you guys aren't alone. I'm in this journey too. And and I hope that brings some comfort. And so I just want to give a big video hug to everybody and say, no, we're all in it together. You're not alone. That's what I want to close off with this.
Absolutely, and a perfect ending. Thank you
All right.
again so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Tasha. It was my pleasure.